Good evening and welcome to the School of the Arts. I'm Kelly Nicastro, Principal of School of the Arts, and it's always a pleasure to welcome family and friends to our school, but especially for events as special and inspiring as this one. Tonight we honor a select group of students who have chosen to become part of the National Honor Society. Becoming an NHS member requires considerable effort and will to excel. Membership is also determined by the School of the Arts faculty and NHS Council. The goal of the organization is to create enthusiasm for learning, stimulate a desire to render service, to promote leadership, and to develop character as a student and citizen. As educators, we strive to instill these core values in all our students. Each one of these amazing juniors and seniors have clearly demonstrated these important characteristics. You have worked very hard to become members of the National Honor Society. This distinction will serve you throughout the rest of your academic careers. Congratulations and a job well done. Each of you embodies the School of the Arts mission of student success, academic, artistic, and humanistic. And we are very proud of you today and always.
We are now going to call our officers to the stage to tell you a little bit about NHS and what it means to School of the Arts. Since 1921, the National Honor Society has been an organization whose objectives are to create an enthusiasm for scholarship, to stimulate a desire to render service, to promote worthy leadership skills, and to encourage the development of character in the nation's secondary school students. At School of the Arts, we're very proud to continue the long-standing tradition of the candle lighting ceremony and induction of new members. Our four officers will review the qualities held in high esteem by the National Honor Society. The lighted candles represent the eternal flame of knowledge. It is from this flame that we light the others. The first attribute demonstrated by each of the candidates here today is leadership. Leadership should exert a wholesome influence on the school. In taking the initiative in class and school activities, a real leader strives to train and aid others to attain the same. The price of leadership is sacrifice, the willingness to yield one's personal interests for the interests of others. A leader has self-confidence and will go forward when others hesitate. No matter what power and resources may exist in a country, they are ineffective without the guidance of a wise leader. Leadership is always needed. Thus, to lead is an important charge to each of our members and to the candidates.
Scholarship needs a commitment to learning. A student is willing to spend hours reading and studying, knowing the lasting benefits of a cultivated mind. We should continue to learn even when formal education has ended, for learning only ends with life. Knowledge is one great element which leads to the highest success, and it can only be acquired in one way, through diligence and effort. Learning furnishes the lamp by which we read the past and the light which illuminates the future. Candidates have the charge to continue to expand their world through the opportunities inherent in scholarship.
Character. Character is the force within each individual that distinguishes that person from others. It gives each one individuality. It is that without which no one can respect oneself nor hope to attain the respect of others. It is this force of character which guides one through life and once developed grows steadily. Character is achieved and not received. It is the product of constant action, daily striving to make the right choice. The problem of character is the problem of self-control. We must be in reality what we wish to appear to others. By demonstrating such qualities as reliability, honesty, and sincerity, we may hope to prove by example that we value character.
Service can be described in various ways. In the routine of the day's work, many opportunities arise to help others. Willingness to work for the benefit of those in need without monetary compensation or without recognition is a quality we seek in our members. We are committed to the idea of volunteering our time and abilities to the creation of a better tomorrow.
Next, I'd like to bring to the stage Aaron Enriquez, who's going to introduce our guest speaker.
Tonight, I would like to introduce our guest speaker, Laura Seeples. She attended the Mannes College of Music in New York City, graduating with a bachelor's in music in 1992 and a master's in music in 1993. Laura is one of the most devoted and dedicated violinists that I know today. She has contributed to the music community by being an active chamber musician, such as being a member of the Chautauqua Symphony Orchestra, and also our very own Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra. Also, Laura is a former music appreciation professor at SUNY Brockport and is currently a member of the strings faculty at the Eastman Community Music School. As a student of hers, my lessons were not just focused on the technicalities of the instrument. Rather, we focused on the importance of responsibility, work ethic, time management, and professionalism. These are all valuable life skills that all National Honor Society members, both current and new, should utilize in all of our bright futures. And now I would like a warm round of applause for our guest speaker, Laura Seeples, who will give a speech on the importance of arts in education.
Thank you, Erin, for your very nice and generous introduction. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and congratulations to you all. I'm very honored to share in this celebration of academic excellence and everything that the Honor Society stands for here at SOTA. It's wonderful to pause and just think of how many years of work has now been successfully completed. Honor Society students, their families, their teachers, their school, and the community can all be proud of this achievement together because it does not happen automatically. In fact, it doesn't happen without lots of caring effort from many people. This is a wonderful night, and I'm truly happy to be here with you. But at this moment, you're probably not only thinking of what you have accomplished. Students, you're probably thinking also about your future quite a lot. You might wonder, what college should you attend? Should you try community college to pick up credits? Vocational training? Should you enlist in the military? There are all kinds of plans and options to think of. It's a wonderfully exciting time and full of possibility. So take some time to enjoy this moment. You're on the verge of making many new discoveries about yourself and the world around you. You will have close friends in the future that will become part of your everyday life, whom you have not met yet. You will live in new places, adopt new daily routines, new commutes, new places you have never seen. You will have experiences and explore interests you can't even imagine right now. You'll memorize and learn so much that you have never known even existed. Your horizons will broaden and the door is wide open. Your future is truly full of hope. All of that will even give you a new perspective and gratitude for what you now know. The people, your home, everything that you now know, you will see differently in the future. Your soul will grow. Of course, there is a flip side to the open door and some unsettling questions. You may have hopes, but also concerns. Do you have what it takes to succeed? How well are you prepared for the future? How will you choose a field of study or a career? How will you make the right decisions? And what if you fail? Those are certainly challenging questions, but let's assess your situation. Let's think about what you've learned as a student artist. Let's connect the road you have traveled with the goals you face ahead. Let's start with big decisions and how they work. They're kind of scary, aren't they, sometimes when you really think about them? But let's think back. How did you choose your major at SOTA? Did you think about it? How old were you when you first tried your hand at your discipline? How much did you really consider this important decision? Well, if you're thinking maybe not a lot, let me tell you how I chose the violin to play. Remember, I hold the instrument in my hands at least 8 hours a day on average. My whole life has literally been shaped by my one decision to start playing the violin. So here I go. When I was 5, my older brother Tim started violin at school. Mrs. Pryor, the nice string teacher, told my mom that he should take private lessons because he had some talent and some interest. And soon, we started driving 35 minutes each way to lessons every Tuesday night with Mrs. And I had to tag along. She lived in a really fancy house, Tudor style. It had leaded glass windows, and it looked to me like a gingerbread house, lots of fancy furniture. But I lived in a townhouse. My parents were refugees of war, and they were immigrants. They were starting over. We didn't have a lot. But they valued education and culture, so that's why we were doing this big thing. So every week, I would sit on the floor and color, or do something that a 5-year-old would do, to wait. And every once in a while, the door would creak open during lessons. Mr. Mishikoff, a famous violinist, would come in and visit. He wanted to see what his wife was doing. He wanted to meet the new students, because after a couple of years with lessons that his wife gave, she would pass the students on to him. So I guess he was talent scouting or something. So he would work with Tim, my brother, and then he would always turn to me, and I was really shy. I'd sit on the floor, trying to not be noticed. But every time he came over, and he would talk to me like a grandpa gets a kick out of little kids. And he would squeeze my cheeks pretty hard, because he had a violinist's hands, and they were really strong. And he would always ask me whether I didn't want to play too. And I always said no. You know why? Because I didn't want to do what my brother was doing. And I certainly didn't want to start something that would forever have him better than me. That would be kind of a bad thing. And in fact, I wanted to play the harp. I had seen it in a nearby house's window, and I thought it looked pretty good. It looked magical, in fact. It sounded magical to me. That was my plan. But one week, when Mr. Mishikoff came in, the thought occurred to me that maybe it was rude to reject him, to say that maybe I didn't feel like doing what he wanted me to try. My parents had always taught me to respect elderly people, so I accepted the invitation with, okay, I guess so. My mom said I looked really reluctant and unhappy. But Mr. Mishikoff jumped on it. We went down to his basement workshop where he had 50 or more violins hanging on pegs, one on top of each other. And he took down a small one that was my size and demonstrated a pretty flashy encore for me. Then he gave it to me, and we went upstairs. He led me to the arched entryway of the house, and there they had wallpaper that had music line staff on it, and some instruments, and also lots of signatures. and he told me to sign my name in crayon. Mr. Mishikoff then pointed out some of the names. He said, look, there's Yasha Heifetz, there's Arturo Toscanini, Horowitz, Rostropovich. Oh, here's Nathan Milstein, my friend, and Misha Elman. Here are some students, Michael Rabin, Eugene Fodor, Joe Silverstein. Oh, here's Jack Benny and Isaac Stern. Oh, and here's Itzhak Perlman. He's a young guy. He's pretty good. I had no idea who those people were. Absolutely none. Now, I know that they were literally a pantheon of great classical musicians. And now, I understand what he was doing. He was enjoying a moment when a young child allowed a new choice in their life. He smiled because he was introducing me to the world of great art. He was seeing a connection from the beginning to where you could arrive. And of course, I didn't see it at all. But now, it's actually come true. I've worked with Itzhak Perlman a number of times in the RPO. He's been our guest. It's been a really special moment. But I played with him, and I always think about how I saw his name on the wall. And actually, I work, as Aaron said, in an orchestra in Western New York every summer called the Chautauqua Symphony. And you only get a job there by audition. It wasn't by connections, but it just so happens that my teacher was the leading violinist there for many years. He was the concertmaster. And I now work as a violinist in the orchestra, and I'm the principal librarian. So I handle all the music that goes out on every stand, and I mark everything in there, like which way the bow should go. And just last month, I was working on some music for next summer when I came across some parts that were marked with initials MM. And I knew it had to be my teacher, Misha Mishikoff. So there was a connection made that day. It's important. Of course, it wasn't just this little decision to play the violin, but all the practicing, performance, and lessons learned that mattered most and got me to this point in my life and my career. As a violin teacher, my very first goals for a student include not only basics, as Aaron mentioned, like holding the violin, those are super important, but I like to build focus and self-discipline to practice well so that students can achieve their goals. And every student prepares regularly for concerts. We don't just wait for it to eventually happen, we program it. It's going to happen. And they must learn, and some the hard way, just how much repetition is needed to have a reliable memory and accuracy when you're nervous. I can't think of a field in which those skills are not useful. Anyone who does an interview, presentation, sales pitch, surgery, lecture, anytime you're facing people you're trying to convince of something, you're really performing. The arts are a great education for any test of life. Another great musical lesson is in how to assess yourself and face challenges head on. When I teach my students, I encourage them to practice by listening analytically to mistakes. I tell them, don't say, that's not good, because it's destructive to the confidence. Instead, they should ask, why wasn't it good? How can I fix it? What happened? When students start to give up on certain passages, because they think they're too hard, I ask them pointedly, why are you settling for less than the best? Why is that good enough for you? I challenge them to dig deeper. They must give everything on stage and learn from the results. That's the life of the artist and the indelible value of art education. As you face the question of how to pick a field of study, think of how to apply your artistic experience and habits. Try new classes, new skills, job experience. Work diligently at those. Give them a real shot. And then think analytically. Don't dwell on whether something didn't go well. Try to figure out what happened. Move forward and make plans on how to act. If you succeed, then keep trying to do even better. Give everything your best effort, as you have always done with your art. There's one last question I mentioned, and that one about whether you will succeed and what might happen in the case of failure. So I hope you'll indulge me. I have another story. This time, I'm talking about a time when I was 17 and a senior in high school. I was among the top of my class, top 10, scored well in SATs, received honors for academic excellence, as you are today. However, actually none of that mattered for what I was going to do, because I was determined to go to a music college and earn a degree in performance. And when you do that, the only thing that really matters is how you play. Some schools don't even ask for your scores. They may ask for an essay. maybe. But at that time, all it really rested on was how you'd play for 15 minutes. I was definitely on an island with that goal. My parents and my violin teacher were supportive, but just about everybody else was not. The nearest arts high school was an hour away. It was not SOTA. One of my teachers actively tried to dissuade me from a career as a musician for at least a year with uncomfortable lunchtime conferences. The student body wasn't any better. We had a talent contest, but I pretty much knew that they might laugh at a violin solo, even if it was really difficult and took months to learn. It was just the culture of the school. And yearbook photos of the talent show, now I look back and I see what I was thinking, because I see football players dressed as cheerleaders with the orange wigs lip syncing. I'm sure they're glad that wasn't on the internet at the time. All right, so I staged my performances for 3 school auditions, and I was immediately accepted, luckily, to the Cleveland Institute of Music, having studied with one of the teachers the previous summer. So that seemed super easy, close to home. But the other schools, Juilliard and the Mannes College of Music, were in New York, and that was way more exciting to me. I really, really, really wanted to go to Juilliard because I thought I had to do that to be successful. But when I arrived for the audition, things didn't go as I expected. Everything seemed really intimidating. Suddenly, I was a complete outsider. Inside the large, blocky concrete building, I heard perfect playing coming from behind each practice room door. Everybody was better than I was. Everybody in the elevator seemed to speak a foreign language. Everybody seemed to be Korean. Everyone was speaking in the elevator in Korean. And I thought, where am I? This is crazy. I don't belong in Manhattan. What am I doing here? And I completely panicked. 2 hours after my scheduled audition time, I finally was allowed to enter a large corner studio with a dozen violin gods seated in a circle. The oldest one looked at my papers like this and said, "Oh, you studied with the Mishikovs. How is Hortense?" And I was shaking with nerves. I could barely answer, let alone play anything. It was pretty bad. Afterward, my mom wanted to comfort me. She took me out to eat across the street, and we just tried to enjoy the big city. But it was kind of hard. I thought I had failed, and miserably. I thought my career maybe was gone before it even started. But the next day, I played my audition uptown at Mannes. Frankly, it looked terrible compared to the modern fortress of Juilliard at Lincoln Center. On West 8th Street at the time, there were boarded-up brownstone buildings, panhandlers, graffiti everywhere. I played in a small, dingy auditorium for about 5 teachers, not 12. I felt completely relaxed because I was pretty certain that I would never attend that school. 1 month later, I got a skinny letter from Juilliard. The rejection was absolutely crushing to me. But then, my brother was accepted to grad school in Columbia. Yay! And suddenly, my parents thought, oh, maybe we could both share an apartment to study in Manhattan. Maybe Mannes was not so bad. I was accepted, and I registered, but there was a big problem. We had done things backwards. By accepting a school without having a teacher lined up, we just didn't have a real plan in place. Mrs. Mishikov's 3 recommendations didn't pan out because those were artists who took only graduate students. By August, I didn't know what to do, so I called the school registrar to ask who was left, and she said, well, lots of people study with Sally Thomas. You can try her. And I called her, and we arranged a time to meet. On that day, I had just moved to Manhattan on blind faith. I was really nervous to start school. I was 17, living in an apartment in Midtown Manhattan. I had never driven a car. I had never really gone to a grocery store by myself. I hadn't done much on my own, and I was about to live in an apartment and go to school in Manhattan. So I took the number 1 subway uptown for the 2nd time in my life, and I got off at 72nd Street and went to her apartment. Miss Thomas answered the door with her 2 yellow labs, and she told me to take my shoes off and warm up in the foyer. After a little bit, she told me to come into her studio, and I shuffled in, rattled around with my music, and Miss Thomas looked at me with her very large, piercing blue eyes, and she said, Laura, you don't need to play anything. I remember your audition. Both of them. completely by accident. I had ended up in a studio of a teacher who taught at both schools. I don't know how I missed that, except that the paper was all I had to know who was on faculty, and I probably threw away Juilliard as soon as I had not gotten in. It was a perfect fit. In the end, my decision was just as blind, but just as good as my choice to study violin in the first place. I'm sharing this story with you for a reason. You're facing big decisions, and maybe some doubts. Remember, you have been well prepared for what you will do. Work hard and honestly at whatever it is you choose to do, as any artist would. Remember, the long-term efforts do pay off, even if you make a blind decision. You're not going to a school, the school's not making you. You're not going to a job, the job is not making you. You will do the work. You're the person going. As a final word, I would like to encourage you to retain your creativity, even if you change to a new path of study. There's nothing to stop you from reading, attending performances, no matter what career you choose. The world needs the energy of creative expression and a sensitive, empathetic audience. A society without art is surely headed for indifferent ignorance and violence. You are the future. Stay connected to art. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura Siepels, for that great, empowering, inspiring speech. And to thank you from the whole National Honor Society members, both current and new, we would like to present tickets to any SOTA performance in the 2018-2019 season.
Next, we'd like to bring to the stage Mary Angeles Gonzalez.
The poem I'm presenting to each one of you guys is titled Building Leaders. No, you do not need a stand, a microphone, or a big crowd filled with crocodile smiles to be called a leader. For a leader is not defined by the quantity that follows or by the way that they present themselves in an assured manner. A leader is not a boss that sits at meetings, finding everyone's faults, legs wide open, hands connected in a diamond, promoting authority. You will encounter many in your path and will have to learn to be selfless. Knowledge prevails. No need for the same routine in this world of calling those with wishes leaders, when you are the one reaching the unreachable goals. A leader has the power to build, not destroy. Careful now. That hammer in your hand shows how things should be done. Those nails hold everyone together. So hammer those long wood pieces to build our foundation. You might get splinters along the way, but you have to be strong enough to work through it all. I assure you this, same day as today, next year, you will not find yourself filled with fear and doubt on your calling. Instead, given into your growing vision. The world needs your desire to awaken minds and your tools to warm up cold love. Come alive and incorporate into a melting pot of true leaders. Thank you.
And now we are going to start our candle lighting ceremony. We now ask the current members to stand as your name is called and light your candle. Faduma Abdi, Celine Alfonso, Janelle Baker, Juliana Bermudez, Sabrina Bowie,
You don't even have to come. They'll leave.
Sophia Casada Unra, Angelo DeLuca, Henry Elliott, Aaron Enriquez, Allison Farr, Ashira Fisher Waxcross, Maya Fisher, Graham Gauthier, Luke Gauthier, Mary Angelise Gonzalez, Catherine Haberberger, Bailey Hawk, Bonamani Kongmani, Jermaine Legree, Esther Ngo Stephen Nguyen, Angelica Ortero, Jonata Polanco, Christopher Raposa, Malika Russell, Willow Singletary, Nazir Smith, Taya Smith, Claire Spenard, and Elise Spencer. Will the inductees please stand as your names are called and take your place at the front of the stage? Georgia Ahumada, Cameron Brown, Emma Bryce, Eurydice Burgos, Haj Sherilyn, Abigail Feldman, Victoria Graziano, Caleb Haight, Alyssa Hauser,